everyone. My name is Sharareh. I'm from the Disability Alliance of BC. And for those of you who don't know DABC, we are a nonprofit organization that works in and around BC, but we're based in Vancouver, and we help people with all sorts of disabilities live independently and with dignity in their communities. So today I'm going to be doing a kind of brief overview of some of the disability benefits that are available to people living in BC. So what we're going to be talking about today is the Provincial Persons with Disability Designation, the Federal Canada Pension Plan Disability Designation, the Disability Tax Credit, and the Registered Disability Savings Plan. All right, so the PWD designation is the provincial disability designation that's administered through the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction. So some of you might know that the MSDPR is also the ministry that provides people with income assistance or persons with persistent and multiple barriers. But what we're going to be focusing on tonight is the Persons with Disability Designation, which does provide people up to $1,183.42 a month currently, and that's for a single person. In order to be eligible for PWD benefits, you can't be making more than the rate that they're giving in a month. So that means currently, if someone's making more than $1,183 before they want to apply, they wouldn't qualify. So in order to qualify, you have to be a resident of British Columbia and a Canadian citizen. You have to be 18 or older, and you have to have a serious disability for at least 2 years or more. And that can be any kind of disability. It can be physical or mental health. And they have to kind of lead to significant restrictions in your ability to perform daily living activities. And then you also have to require ongoing help, whether that be from another person, an assistive device, or an assistance animal. So other than kind of being under the rate amount, you also have to have less than $100,000 in assets, which doesn't include like the house that you are living in or the car that you're actively driving, but it does mean, for example, cash or investments or any other property other than the primary residence. Some exemptions to this would be the Registered Disability Savings Plan, which we'll talk about in a bit, or a Registered Disability Savings Trust. Once someone has been approved for PWD benefits, however, they are allowed to work and earn up to $15,000 a year without it being clawed back from any of their disability benefits, and that's for a single person. So for a couple, you are allowed to earn up to $18,000 if one person has PWD, and $30,000 if you're a couple where both people are on PWD benefits. So this can be quite difficult for some people. For example, if you are a person with a disability and have a spouse who's working and making a lot of income, that means that unfortunately you wouldn't qualify for this program. So as mentioned before, what someone gets if they are approved for PWD benefits is $1,183.42 monthly for support and shelter, and as well as a transportation supplement, which is currently either $52 a month cash or a bus pass for TransLink and BC Transit served communities, health benefits, and other supplements. Because this is an income and asset based program, you do have to kind of go through the income assistance application first and prove that you qualify financially. So they'll ask for things like bank records and other financial information in order to ensure that financially you'll qualify, as well as making sure that you medically qualify. So some of the health benefits that come with being on PWD are things like MSP coverage, extended medical therapies, and there's also additional diet or nutritional supplements that one can apply for, and things like dental coverage, glasses coverage, just to name a few things. So how does one apply? As discussed before, once you've kind of gone through the income assistance application portion of the application, you'll get what's known as the PWD application booklet, which is a big like yellow booklet. They also now are doing online versions of the form as well. So they're sent to you kind of via the online portal that the ministry uses. So there's 3 different sections to the form. The first section is a applicant information portion. So it's meant to be a self-report. The second portion is a medical report that's meant to be filled out either by the applicant's main medical practitioner, or it can be a specialist. And section 3 is an assessor's report, which can be filled out either by the same medical doctor as section 2, or can be filled out by other qualified practitioners, such as a social worker. So some of the severity that you want to focus on for someone's application is the severity of the medical condition, so that it needs to last at least 2 years or more. The restrictions, so specific restrictions they have in daily living activities, and some of those activities that the ministry considers daily living activities are things like self-care, dressing yourself, preparing a meal, household chores, physical mobility, social functioning, and transportation. So a real focus on how an applicant is restricted in those areas, as well as what kind of assistance they're either receiving or that they're not necessarily receiving right away, but should be receiving or are required to be receiving. And it can either be from a person, so it could be a friend, a family member, someone that's hired on, support staff, something like that. It can be from like an assistive device. So for example, if someone is in a wheelchair or uses a cane or something like that, or an assistance animal. So if someone has like a service dog or a service animal. So section 1, which is the self-report, is optional. It is actually quite a good place for people to be able to provide information and provide information from their point of view that would hopefully also match up with the information that the doctor and the assessor are giving. And it's a real opportunity to provide details. So because the rest of the form is quite structured, this is the only section of the form in which people can write out information and provide like examples and provide more detail than they would on any other section of the form. Section 2, as we discussed, is the medical report. Some examples of great language to use for this section are things like a severe and persistent impairment, mentioning that despite ongoing treatments, that this isn't going to resolve in the next 2 years, and that the impairments are pervasive and severe, and that they require significant ongoing assistance from another person. So in the form, they will ask you whether or not restrictions are periodic or restrictions are continuous. So in order to meet the periodic criteria, a doctor does have to say exactly how long something is happening. So a lot of the times we'll see that someone gets denied because the doctor didn't specify how often and for how long someone is restricted in doing something. And restricted means that someone requires assistance even though they might not get it or accept it. So it's more a focus on the need for help rather than what kind of help is that person actually getting actively. So another good thing to focus on is also getting the doctor to write that they support the application and that they agree with the applicant's self-report. So this can just kind of tie in the whole application together and show doctor support for their patient. And then section 3, again, a doctor can fill it out. Section 3 is more detailed than section 2 is, so this provides an opportunity for a doctor or a professional to write down details of how something is restricted or indicate how much longer an activity would take. All right, next we have federal CPP Disability Benefits, and this is administered through Service Canada. So in order to qualify for CPP Disability Benefits, you have to be under the age of 65. So, and if you're over the age of 60, you can't have been on early retirement for more than 15 months. And you have to have worked and contributed into the CPP program. So this doesn't work for someone who has never been able to work at all, or for people who are maybe like new to Canada and haven't had an opportunity to work in Canada yet. This is for people who were working at some point and now are no longer able to work due to their disability. And of course, you have to have a disability that is considered both severe and prolonged, as defined by Service Canada's legislation. So what is considered severe according to Service Canada? They define severe as any condition that would make a person incapable of regularly pursuing any substantially gainful employment. So that's kind of a convoluted term, but it basically means that someone is unable to do any kinds of work. So that means not full-time work, not part-time, not seasonal, and not, for example, an easier job than the job that they've been doing their whole life. So it means they can't do any types of work, and they're unable to kind of retrain in order to be able to do a different kind of work. So they're not able to go back to school or take a course or get some kind of certifications either. And prolonged means that a disability is likely to be long continued and an infinite duration, or is likely to result in death. So the idea behind the idea of prolonged is that this disability is going to stay with someone for the rest of their life, and it's going to make them unable to work likely for the rest of their life. So this is not one of those short-term disability benefits. It's not for someone who is planning on going back to work in the next year or so. So earlier I mentioned kind of contributing into CPP and making sure that you have enough contributions. So the way that that works is what Services Canada calls the minimum qualifying period. So the minimum qualifying period is the period of time that a person has to have worked and paid into CPP before they become disabled. So before they have to show that their disability was severe and prolonged. So in order to qualify, you have to have worked and paid into CPP benefits for at least the last 4 out of 6 years. So that could be the current last 4 out of 6 years, or it could be the last 4 out of 6 years before someone's disability became so severe that they couldn't work anymore. So a lot of the times people don't realize that these kinds of programs exist, or they're so busy taking care of their health that they don't have time to apply for these. So that's fine as long as you can show that medically you had a disability to the point that you weren't able to continue working by the end of your qualifying period, which is that 4 out of 6 years. And so a lot of people might go, okay, well, I don't really know how much I've contributed or when I've contributed, and if I have that 4 out of 6 years of contributions. So the best way to make sure that you have enough contributions and what years you've contributed is to request a statement of contributions. And that can be done in a myriad of different ways, but kind of the best way to do it is either to call Service Canada at that number that's provided right there. And at that number, you can just let them know that you need your statement of contributions mailed to you, and they will mail it. Or if someone has a My Service Canada account, which I know right now, because of all the COVID benefits, quite a few people did have a My Service Canada account, you will be able to access your statement of contributions through your My Service Canada account. What does the CPP application form look like? So the CPP application form is one long application that's meant to be filled out by the applicant themselves. So there's different sections to the form that asks for things like personal information, whether or not someone is married, whether or not someone has worked outside of Canada, information about their medical conditions, information about doctors they've seen, their work history, and then of course like signatures and declarations. They do ask this information because it's all relevant. So for example, if someone is divorced, they're able to do what's known as a credit split, which will divide someone's credits evenly for the period of time that they were married or in a common law relationship. So this can be really beneficial for people who were either a low income earner while they were married, or if they didn't work at all while they were married and are now divorced, they are able to access some of those benefits. If someone didn't, for example, worked for a period of time outside of Canada or is new to Canada, Canada does have some social security agreements with different countries, and you're able to check those to see if you're able to get your work credits transferred over from a different country so that you are able to qualify for CPP disability as well. So those are some good things to note if you're also unsure about whether or not someone might qualify for this program. There is also a medical report. It's a lot shorter than the Provincial Disability Medical Report, but it's filled out entirely by the doctor. And the most important questions are found on the last page, which is the two questions that ask, did you recommend that this patient stop working? And you want that answer to be, yes, I recommended that this patient stop working. And then the second most important question that it asks is, from strictly a medical standpoint, do you expect this person to be able to return to work? And you want that answer to be no. This will give someone the highest chance of being approved, and usually anything other than those two answers end up in an automatic denial. You also want to make sure that what the medical report has written down and what the application portion that's meant to be filled out by the applicant themselves, that the information matches up as much as possible so that you have the highest chance of getting approved. So CPP disability rates actually fluctuate based on how much someone has contributed into CPP themselves. So it starts out at a base rate of $496, and then it goes up based on how many years and how much money someone has contributed into CPP themselves. The current maximum is sitting at $1,362.30. For people who are approved for CPP disability, they also have a child of disabled contributor portion. So if the child is under the age of 18, the parent will receive $250 a month per child. If the child is over the age of 18 but under the age of 25 and attending full-time school, that money will go to the child. If someone is approved for CPP disability benefits, because it does take usually around 6 to 8 months for Service Canada to adjudicate CPP disability benefits, they will actually backdate the application to the date of application. That means you'll receive all the months worth of money for all the months that you were waiting to hear back from Service Canada. This is a taxable benefit, which is important to note because PWD is not a taxable benefit, and CPP disability is. And if you're getting a lump sum, that might be a little bit tricky for someone to work out on their taxes. However, it's best to talk to an accountant about that. If someone is on CPP disability benefits and decides that they want to start working again or returns to work, once they make $5,500, they have to call Service Canada and let them know. If someone is already on PWD benefits and then they apply for CPP disability benefits, it is deducted dollar per dollar from their provincial PWD benefits, which means, for example, if someone's receiving like $800 from CPP disability, that amount will get deducted from their provincial disability benefits. Now, on the flip side, if someone's on CPP disability benefits and not on PWD benefits, as long as they financially qualify for PWD benefits, they can automatically apply for what's known as a prescribed class PWD application. That means that they don't have to go through the medical process of applying for CPP. They just need to prove that financially they qualify. All right. And the third thing we're going to talk about is the disability tax credit, which is a federal run program. The DTC is a non-refundable tax credit that basically helps people pay less taxes. This is also a transferable credit. So for example, if the applicant themselves, so the person with the disability, doesn't pay any taxes or doesn't owe any taxes, they can give it to a parent or a spouse or someone who provides them support, and that person can get the refund themselves. This can also be backdated for up to 10 years to the date of disability. So as long as the doctor can certify that your disability started at a certain date, they will go back to that date of disability for up to 10 years. In order to open an RDSP, you have to be approved for the disability tax credit, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So who is eligible for the disability tax credit? So any person with a disability who meets kind of the categories that are set out by the CRA can qualify. A doctor or specialist has to say you have a severe and prolonged impairment, and that it has to last at least 1 year. So a severe impairment means that an applicant is either very restricted in one basic activity of daily living as set out by the CRA. So this either means that they can't do the activity, need a lot longer to do the activity, or need help to do the activity. Or they can be restricted a little less, but in 2 or more of the activities. So it's either one activity 90% of the time or 2 or more of the activities combined causes a restriction 90% of the time. And the last category that someone can qualify under is a need for therapy that keeps them alive and also takes up a lot of time. So that's called the life-sustaining therapy category. So the activities of daily living that the CRA qualifies is vision, speaking, either eating or making food, hearing, walking, eliminating, dressing, and then mental functions necessary for everyday life. So how to apply for this program is actually pretty straightforward. So the form is available online. It's called the Form T2201. And in order to fill it out, the applicant just has to fill out the first page that asks for their basic information. And then the rest of the form is entirely filled out by a doctor or specialist and then mailed or sent into the CRA via their online MyCRA system. In order to qualify under mental functioning, some of the kind of examples could be if someone is restricted in self-care, health and safety needs, social interactions, transactions, memory and cognitive functioning, problem solving, goal setting, and judgment. So it doesn't mean that one of these symptoms have to restrict you 90% of the time, but a combination of multiple of these mental functioning symptoms, if combined together, restrict you 90% of the time, that would work. So some of the key phrases that are best for this application when the doctor is applying are things like mentioning that someone is restricted substantially all of the time, or that they require assistance, that they're unable to manage the activity, or it takes them either 3 times or 2 times as long to complete an activity compared to an average person their age without restrictions. Things that aren't helpful for the application are things like someone's ability to do work, housekeep, manage a bank account, drive, or do recreational activities, as these don't matter to the CRA. Some helpful tips. We do have an app that you're able to use to help with kind of creating a write-up for this application, because this application relies so heavily on the doctor providing examples and details. Sometimes doctors just don't have the time to do that. So you can either reach out to us at DABC or use that app that will kind of guide you through how to create examples and what to write on the application to get the best chance of approval. So again, you can either mail it or submit it online, and it can take up to 3 to 4 months for the CRA to make a decision. After the application is approved, they will either approve it for a chunk of time or approve it indefinitely, which means that a lot of people will end up having to reapply for the disability depending on how that doctor fills out their form. If someone is denied, it's not the end of the road. We're also able to help with that, and there are quite a few options. So once you're approved for the disability, you can open what's known as a registered disability savings plan. So the RDSP is a long-term savings plan that's created by the federal government that's kind of meant to help people put away money or save some money for old age or retirement. And the great thing about this plan is that it won't affect any other disability benefits. So for example, if you're on PWD benefits, none of the money that's in an RDSP will impact your ability to continue receiving disability benefits. Anyone is allowed to contribute into someone's plan. So for example, if you're a plan holder, your friends, your family are allowed to contribute into your registered disability savings plan. To be eligible, an applicant must have a social insurance number, be a Canadian resident, and be approved for the disability tax credit. And they have to open their RDSP by December 31st of the year they turn 59. Now, the RDSP also comes with grants and bonds offered by the government. And in order to qualify for those, you have to open the plan by December 31st of the year you turn 49. So the registered disability savings grant amount is for people who are allowed to contribute or are able to contribute into their RDSP either themselves or through someone else. So for the first $500 that you contribute into the account, the government will match that 3 to 1. So that means they will put in $1,500, and for the next $1,000, the government will contribute 2 to 1, which means that if someone contributes yearly $1,500 into their account, the government will contribute $3,500 every year for up to 20 years or until the year they turn 49. The registered disability savings bond is for people who have an income of less than or equal to $31,000 a year. For this one, all someone needs to do is open an RDSP, and the government will automatically put in $1,000 into their account every year until December 31st of the year they turn 49, or for up to 20 years, so for up to $20,000. Again, you don't have to put anything into your account as long as you have the account open and are approved for the disability tax credit and are low income. The government will automatically put in the $1,000. Now, the nice thing about this one is that you can apply retroactively for both the grants and the bonds. So if your disability tax credit is approved retroactively, then you can also have retroactive grants and bonds as long as you are under the age of 49 when you open the account. If you are getting the bond, you don't even have to apply for that. As long as you open the disability tax credit, they will put in all your retroactive bonds. And it's best to talk to a financial advisor about knowing exactly how much money to put into your account every year to make sure you're getting the most out of your retroactive grants. Now, because this is a long-term savings plan, I will note that you have to keep all the money in your account for at least 10 years after the last grant or bond has gone into your account. So for most people, that means if they stop receiving grants and bonds at the age of 49, they have to keep all the money in their account for at least another 10 years. So until they turn 59 or let's say 60, just to be safe. And then they can slowly start pulling money out of their account. But it is meant to be a long-term savings plan, similar to an RRSP. The Vancouver Foundation does have the Endowment 50 grant, which people can apply for a $150 grant to kind of kickstart their registered disability savings plan. This will help you access some of those grants. So for anyone who's under the age of 18 or for adults who earn under $25,000 a year or who've received income assistance since 2008, this is a great program that's available to you to be able to access your grants. I know I threw a lot of information out there. I hope that that was helpful, but if anyone has any questions, would like to apply for one of these programs, needs help in any kind of way, we are always available. So you can email us at advocacy@disabilityalliancebc.org. You can call us at 604-872-1278, or you can visit our website where we have a lot of help sheets that kind of explain a lot of the programs that we help with, but more in depth, and can provide examples and details on those help sheets as well. And obviously, once COVID's over, you can come visit us in our office, but currently we are closed. Thanks so much, and I hope that that helped.